Yes, yes, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Green's House. I am Jericho Green. You know what we do here. We talk to amazing people with interesting stories to tell, and today is no different. He is a father, he is a veteran, he is a business owner, and more importantly, he's an American. I caught him on Instagram, been a big fan of his, and I think if you had to boil this man down to one word, and I'm not saying you should, I'm not saying you could, but if you had to, I think the word would be passion. And I have a reel from his Instagram that I want to get to a little bit later on that I think perfectly encapsulates that. But you can't help when you see this man in his environment, teaching those kids, teaching those adults. Passion is the word, and his love for what he does really shines through. That's what drew me to him and made me want to get him on the show. So enough talking about it. Let's be about it. Mr. Donavin Britt. How you doing,
Jericho,
man?
what is up, man? Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. This is phenomenal. This is a great day. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and my pleasure. And thank you for taking the time. Like I mentioned, you're a family man, you got a business. So carving out some time for me is greatly appreciated. And it is not lost on me. Time is very precious. So let's not waste it. Let's get right into it, man.
Yeah.
So when and where did you grow up?
I have lived all over the place, but the Bay Area is home. I was born in Vallejo. I went to school in San Leandro in Oakland, East Oakland. Used to live in East Oakland, but mostly spent my time in the Dro in San Leandro. Shout out to the Bay Area. Bay Area, stand up. I love the Bay. I was just back home actually a couple of days ago. We spent some time in Napa. My wife wanted to go to Napa and do the whole wine tour and the train. We flew into the town, so it was great being home and smelling that Bay Area water and feeling the moisture in the air because it's a lot different than Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, man, totally different. I mean, in the summertime, quote unquote summer in the Bay Area, you will have a sweatshirt with you.
Oh
I
yeah,
you see the tourists coming out there and they got the shorts and the t-shirts because they think it's July and it's California. But when you get up in
yeah.
that Bay Area, that fog is gonna come over that hill pretty quick, and you're gonna be caught slipping.
Yes, sir. I used to work on Fisherman's Wharf when I was in asset protection. One of my stores was down in Fisherman's Wharf, and I used to laugh at the tourists. They would show up in shorts and t-shirt in June, and I'm like, they're not familiar with Mark Twain. The coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco, and the Gap was there, and they would sell fleece all year round at that store because it's that cold. So it was nice to be home and kind of get that moisture. But we were prepared for it, having been being from there. We knew what the deal is, so we brought those sweaters with us, and it was nice to be home. It's always good to go home.
Yeah, I used to work near Monterey or in Monterey, so we see the same thing. Tourists come in half naked because they think it's California, and all the women are going to be in two pieces on roller skates. And
Yeah.
then, as a local, you go into these stores and think, who the hell is going to pay $49 for this sweatshirt? The tourists
Hey,
do because it's either
when
that
you're
or
when you're
free.
cold, that's reasonable.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah, nothing
sir.
like the $50 I love Monterey sweatshirt.
Oh
So
man,
it's
I've
good.
seen them. Okay, so you were in the army. So what kind of made you join the army? Was it a patriotism thing? You know, I wanted to serve my country. Was it
Uh,
I need to do this, or maybe a mixture?
there probably that. I mean, that was certainly part of it. And then the other part was at the time I was going to be in law enforcement at the time, and I thought I could get some good training. And I actually joined the army after I got done playing ball in college and going to college. So I was a little bit older when I went into the army. And I went into the PSYOPs unit, 7 PSYOPs group. Shout out to PSYOPs group and UCK pot community. I ended up joining and got exposed to some really high level soldier and understanding psychological operations. Being that our primary function was to win the hearts and minds of the enemy without firing a shot at them, and so the United States Army provided also, I think, some gaps in what should be part of standard training in our school system, leadership gaps and understanding being part of a team. I knew that stuff playing football, but leadership and community and fighting for the person next to you I think is more important than anything. And again, that also is part of patriotism as well. When you're willing to lock arm with your fellow countrymen in defense of the way of life that we have here, I think it's important.
Yes, sir. And do you remember your drill instructor's name?
Yeah, absolutely. I have three of them: Drill Sergeant Barton, Drill Sergeant Depew, Drill Sergeant Fan, Drill Sergeant Henry. All these were great men. The drill sergeant is the Army, right? These are and then I was at Jackson, so we actually had female drill sergeants too, and people always laugh at it like, "Oh, Jackson is easier. Jackson is easier. Um, Jackson is easier," but Jackson isn't easier because that's drill sergeant school, right? So they have drill sergeant school, so they not only have the drill sergeants, you have the drill sergeant instructors. It was a nightmare. Can't get away from them, but everything we learn about the Army, you learn from the drill sergeant. You learn how to conduct yourself as a leader. You learn how to be accountable. And more importantly, I think get the most out of every member of your team because, you're in the military, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And even the weak guy is important in the unit because they're going to come up, they're going to be asked to do things that we need them to do, and they have to perform. So that gave me, I think, a foundation emotionally and psychologically to deal with what comes when you try to own a business, right? So without that, I think foundation, I'm not sure I would be a successful business owner.
Yeah, teamwork and team is paramount in the military. And the military is one of the few jobs that you have where there are people watching while you sleep. They're watching out for you while you're sleeping, while you're counting sheep and dreaming of the girl you can't wait to get back to. Those
Yep.
guys are walking around with guns to make sure
Yep.
that you're safe. That's a very
Uh,
unique experience.
yeah.
And one thing you never forget is your drill instructor's name. Or I was in the Navy, so it was a recruit division commander. You
Yep.
remember all of them. If you saw
Yep.
him 25 years later after a head injury, you will remember those people because they were the personification of the military. They were sharp. Their uniforms were on point. Everything was crisp. The way they spoke, the way they acted and taught you, like you said, teaching you how to be a leader. So you never forget those people. So what position did you play and where did you play ball in college?
Yeah. So I played running back and linebacker in high school. I excelled at running back. I ended up when I left high school, I was the leading rusher in Northern California and had more touchdowns than anyone in Northern California. And I played at San Leandro High. And then I went to Chabot College and I left Chabot and I went and played at Glenville State for Rich Rodriguez for a year. And in my last year, I was in Minnesota, at Southwest State in Minnesota. So playing running back as well. So uh, again, those lessons that I learned on the football field and how to prepare and how to also work with team, and then also being accountable for when even when things aren't your fault. Leadership is about sharing the credit and accepting all the blame.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's just the way that what it is. And when you're a captain of a team or one of the better players of the team, yeah, you get the benefits of it, but you also have to own it. And I see a lot of guys kind of shying away from that kind of stuff now. They like the accolade, but they don't like the intense scrutiny that comes with that sometimes. And you just have to understand that that's part of it. If you're going to put yourself out there and want to separate yourself by your performance on a public setting, you're going to get criticized. I have my videos, we have millions of views and we get criticized every single day, and people come in just for the purpose of trying to tear it down. And sometimes I turn the other cheek and sometimes I hit back. It depends on
Right.
what mood I'm in. So, um, but it's all good. You just have to accept that you can't take everything to heart and realize at the end of the day, when I go home, I'm not the influencer online. I'm just dad and husband and kind of just do my thing and take out the trash. And I like to chill and watch TV
Yeah.
and enjoy a cold one every now and then and just spend time with the family.
And it's one of those things. If you don't know, you don't know. Somebody can read books to you and tell you what it's like, but
Yeah.
to experience that love of family and being excited to get home, being excited when you hear your kids come in the house, dad, your kids are a little bit older than mine, but when they're kids, nobody runs out the house in the driveway for you other than them, man. It's a wonderful feeling. And some people who may not be married, and I remember when I got married and stuff, I was the first one out of my group of friends. So you get some of that, oh man, you can't stay. oh man, she won't let you. But they don't understand what you're going home to. They don't understand the feeling of having family, sitting down on your couch, having your kids come sit with you, watching something together. Those are the best moments.
Yeah, I always tell people like my kids have never gone to bed not knowing where dad is, right? Like I have cost myself hundreds of thousands of dollars by turning down stuff because I'm going to be at some recitals, or I'm going to be at basketball practices, I'm going to be at games. I have flown across the country on red eye so I can catch a game, my son playing, and or my daughter swimming or whatever she's doing. Those things are important. Like, you can't lose sight of why we really do this. Yeah, it's nice to chase millions and all that other stuff. That's part of it, but who cares if you don't have a foundation at home, if you don't have a sense of purpose beyond collecting material things, then it's somewhat empty. And I see a lot of people. I know a lot of guys are far more successful than I am, and they don't have that piece of knowing, hey, I belong to a group. It's like I laugh. My wife and I laugh all the time. I'm like, literally, I made people, and I'm their leader. You know what I mean? So there's a responsibility that comes with that, and you know, they didn't ask to be here, right? They didn't ask to be here.
Mhm.
We brought them into this world, and so we have a responsibility to make sure that we try and teach them the best way that we can, and get them prepared for the next phases of their life. Because my wife's going through that now, realizing that we may not always be the most important people in their life. They're going to get to a point where they have to go out on their own to go do things. So the foundation that we give them at home is important. So we have peace in our home, and we don't have drama. And when I grew up, I came from a split home. So my dad wasn't around, and I don't, I was telling my buddy of mine yesterday, I didn't know what it was like to feel a warm hug from my father, right? Or that I could come home and ask my dad about, challenges that are going on in my life at that time. I didn't have that opportunity. So I make sure for my kids that at, at any time they know they can call me if I'm on the mat teaching, if I'm doing something and it's an emergency or whatever they need me. They know they can come and interrupt any meeting that I'm in. Anything, nothing will ever be more important than what they're facing. And so, but it also teaches them a comfort too, right? So that they know I'm coming home. They know what we stand for. They know what we expect. And every lesson they've learned about life, they learned either on the mat or through our time together. Both of my kids are competitive athletes. They're great students, and they learn that from our lifestyle. And so it's pretty unique. My family's pretty unique because we're a multicultural family. My wife is an immigrant from Vietnam, Chinese Vietnamese, and so her whole family, they all came here with nothing. They literally escaped a war-torn country to come
Mhm.
here. And oh, I'm sorry, there's backing up. There's that beeping. Hold on one second.
Hey, that's a good problem to have. A car that
Sorry
beeps when
about
you
that.
back up. That's
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
it's the benefits of the one of the benefits of the thing. Okay. So, at any rate, sorry about that. So when you come from a perspective, like my wife's family's perspective, they literally had nothing. They didn't come here with anything. All they had was each other. And so culturally, there's a sense of responsibility within the community, within the Chinese community, that the men in the family will always look out. The oldest will always look out for the younger, and so on, so forth. So I'm the first outsider in my wife's family. I'm the first non-Chinese person in my wife's family. My kids are the first biracial kids and the only set of twins. So it's a pretty unique thing, and we raise them with the full understanding of who they are, where they come from. They're both cultures, and then also on top of that, being American, right? So there's a uniqueness there and a responsibility to become great. When you come from a family of immigrants, they came here with nothing. You don't have an excuse. My
Yeah.
my grandfather was the first black man to work for the phone company in Anchorage, Alaska. My uncle is a law enforcement legend in Alaska, in Anchorage.
Wow.
Ed Rhodes, he used to be the chief of police there, and he was also the director of the state police there. One of the few guys to hold both posts at the same time. And so, um, my drive and passion come from knowing, like, my grandfather never missed a day of work. And this guy was climbing telephone poles, hanging line, you know, working up there and in the cold. So if my grandfather can do that, I certainly can get my butt up and go to work and teach and help improve people's lives. So family is such an important thing. Leadership is an important thing, and then having a sense of doing this for something that's bigger than yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. So many good things you said in there. I obviously it's very important that you had strong male role models in your life to show you what it's like to persevere, what you need to be doing as a man. A lot of, hey, like you said before, being a leader, the bad stuff, you got to take it. Now you might breathe fire on your group in private, but in public or out, in front of people, you take that and you nod and smile, because on the other end, when you're scoring touchdowns, when you're being successful, when you're closing deals, you're going to get all that adulation as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a
I mean,
great point. Now you meant, I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was just saying, you got to just know that the dark times are coming. They will come. Look, man, when I started my gym, right? I started my gym so in 2008, I bought the gym from my old instructor. In 2008, if you recall, it was a big crash, right? The big crash happens. So, and I was involved, I was in real estate at the time, and so was my wife. So we were both double impacted, by the crash of the economy. And so I think with the last $400 or $500 on my account, I started what would become the company that I own today. I'm standing in the financial ruin that was my life. But see, I grew up without money, and both of us grew up with limited resources when we were younger. So we've been poor before. So you can't really fall off the ground. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so it wasn't. And my wife was pregnant at the time with twins, and I walked past this homeless dude, and I was like, this dude probably has a higher net worth than I do. We hold the bank so much money with real estate loans and everything else. But I didn't really have time to be stressed out about it, man. I had twins on the way. I had to provide. My kids got to eat, and so you get up and go to work every single day with that fire in your belly, and not really the wet blanket kind of woe is me kind of thing, right? So this is just part of the deal. Like, if you want to be successful, it's going to hurt. Success sucks sometimes. It does, because you're going to have to give up a lot.
Yeah, I often use the analogy. You seen that movie, Shawshank Redemption, where
Yes.
when Andy Dufresne, when he's escaping, he has to crawl through 200 yards of raw
Yes.
sewage. But when he
Hey,
gets to the
man.
other side, there's that famous scene where his hands up in the air and the rain is washing him clean. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to do that.
Yeah. Listen, and because there's no other way out, right? Like, so the way oftentimes is through the fire. It's through the crap, right? And a lot of people don't have the fortitude to take that step. And it's no different than in self-defense, right? So everyone always talks about fight or flight, but they forget those aren't the two F's that get you in trouble. It's the third F, freeze, that gets you in trouble. If you fight, you're taking action. If you flee, you're taking action. If you freeze, you're doing nothing. And so it's the same thing in life. We don't want to freeze. We want to make a decision and go forward, right? And it's also too, it's not like you never take a step back. Sometimes you have to take a step back to kind of reassess and re-engage. That's not the same thing as quitting. Knowing when to quit and quitting, same thing, right? So where does confidence come from? It's from being knocked down and having to get back up again. And then it's like a lot of people, when they get punched the first time, they'll fold up and ball up into this ball, like, oh my God, this hurts so bad. And because they've never been in that situation. And I think like right now, that's a problem in society. Particularly with parents, they're doing everything they can. Right? They're doing everything they can to have their kids avoid discomfort, or have their kids avoid disappointment. And it's like, no, in my household, we live in that. Like, we live in that moment. My son plays basketball at a very high level in the Nike circuit, and he was part of another team. And the director told him to his face. We sat down. He told him to his face, said, "Hey, we don't think you can fit on this team. We don't think you can play at this level." Now, I'm in the meeting with my son, and I'm letting my son wear it and own it. Now, whether I agreed with the director at the time is irrelevant. because I wanted to see what my son would do. And I knew this conversation would either make him or break him. He's either going to go into a ball or he's going to come out swinging. And that was the first time. My son is really, he's more like his mother. He's wears his emotions on his sleeves. He's a very thoughtful, kind, considerate kid. But that was the first time I saw the monster in his eyes when he was looking back at this dude like, oh, you think okay. And I look at him, he's like, I saw it. I saw the first time in his eyes. I'm like, okay, now this is interesting. So we end up, so I asked him, I said, well, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to go to the gym right now and work. Okay, so we went and we worked out. So then after the workout, well, what do you want to do? I don't want to play for that team anymore. I want to find another team to play with, and I want to play against them. Good. We did that. And so he went down with these goals, got picked up by another team, and they ended up winning the biggest tournament of the season this summer in Las Vegas. They won the big time at the platinum level. And now he's also been invited to play for an EYBL team on the Nike circuit, as well as another Under Armour team. So those moments, though, of that pain that he had to feel, and it hurt him because this kid works hard, and it just hurt him. You could see it. I could see the pain in his eyes. And my wife was a little, she wasn't upset, but she was like, why didn't you step in? Why didn't you say something? And I'm like, I can't rob him of that opportunity to become a man. I can't.
Yeah.
He's got to feel that. Same thing that I felt when I lost all my money in my business. Nothing humbles you quicker, brother, than setbacks and failure. And so if my message to my students is that it's not a matter of if, it's when those times will come. Mm-hmm. Then who are you? Right? Like, everybody it's all good to smile when everything's going your way. But what do you do when things aren't going your way? And we've been on the brink so many times. COVID killed a lot of my friends' business in my industry. Mm-hmm. And I saw what that did to them. I saw what it did to their families, and my heart goes out to them. And I know it's, one step to the left or right, it could have been me. Right. But we've been blessed and we're thriving, and every day is a grind, and we get up and get after it, brother. So this is what life should be about. I'm sorry. Like, a lot of people are you seeing this? I see this, like, it's almost like people are like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do what my parents did. I don't want to have to grind that way. I don't like the stress. It's just too much. And I'm like, I don't understand how you think there's any other way you can do this, though. Mm-hmm. Like, how can you really become successful without that grit, determination, and the setbacks and the failure? How can you even think that that's possible? And I think there's a huge part of society. People are blaming the kids. It's not just the kids. We're the ones that raise them. Yeah, right. It's us. So it's us collectively. How do we get them to understand that? Look, if you really want to be great, you're gonna have to step out. And I tell my students all the time, this, as part of my freshman, this shit we do is not for everybody. Right? This success thing, this being driven, this stepping out, and it's not for everybody. Look, the bulk of the Army aren't U.S. Army Rangers, right? The bulk of the Army aren't Special Operations Group. The bulk of the Army is support. That doesn't mean they're bad soldiers. It just means they're not tier 1 door kicking. I wasn't a tier 1 door kicking guy. I trained with those guys and had guys in my unit like that and got to do stuff that they got to do. But that wasn't my primary function. But that don't mean I'm a bad soldier. It just means in that moment, that's not what I'm there for. But when you're a man and you're a leader of your household and you're the husband and you're the dad, you have to be the first line of defense. Like, you have to be. And not just against, physical threats, right? But just against threats to your peace, threats to your finances, threat to the structure of your home. And if you fail, the family fails, and that can't happen. And so I see a lot of men succumbing to the pressure, what they call the pressure of that, instead of embracing it, saying, no, this is why I was born. Right? This is why I was born. This is my primary function. Once I chose to be a father, once I chose to be, build that nuclear family, or be a business owner, or do it. Once you choose those things, you can't run from the responsibilities that come with them.
Yeah, you're like you said about kids, they didn't choose to be here, but when you choose to be in that life or choose to do those things, you got to take what comes with it. And as a man and a father, you have broad shoulders, and you just have to shoulder it. Teach your kids some lessons in that, but you got to keep going. Something I
100%.
wanted to ask you as a parent. Okay, so my daughter, she's 11, and she
Yeah.
is the kindest little person you've ever met. The picture of the soldier pointing his gun and the little girl putting the flour in the barrel of his gun, that's my daughter. She's, let's find the peace in this and be nice and let's talk it out. But she was
Sure.
in a situation where a girl was bullying her, saying I'm
Yeah.
a black belt and I'm gonna kick your ass and all this stuff. So in that moment, I was like, it's time to get you, into something, some kind of self-defense.
Yeah.
But my thing is, and I'm sure a lot of parents deal with this, and I'm sure you've dealt with this 1,000 times, so that's why you're the perfect person to answer it. Um, how do you get kids who aren't fighters to fight? How do you get kids who are kind and kind-hearted and who would probably rather get beat up than to hurt somebody else? How do you tackle that? Because me as a dad, I'm just thinking, hey, you need to do this. You need this skill in life. That's it. But you
Yeah.
also want them to want to do it. So what say you?
Right. So there's a fine line. Number one, the girl who was the bully that's on the black belt, she was a bully before she ever stepped onto the mat of whatever situation she was learning. Martial arts doesn't turn someone into a bully. Parenting and an environment turn people into a bully. And so a lot of people are, I know there's a lot of parents that have been reluctant to put their kids in martial arts because the first thing they say is, well, I don't want my kid to become a bully. And I'm like, well, that's not it. I'm like, I always ask the parents, well, are they a bully now? No. Okay, well, then you've done a good job of raising your kid. They're not going to become a bully because you put them in martial arts. But the second thing is that you have to teach kids to value themselves so much where they won't tolerate someone physically trying to hurt them or impose their will on them. It's self-esteem, right? My self-esteem is so high, like I deserve to go to school and be unmolested and be unbothered and walk these halls and do my thing without you bothering me. If we can't be friends, we can at least agree not to be enemies, right? And so when you teach kids to value themselves in that regard, I think it's easier to teach them. The other part is the training environment should also keep it safe for kids to learn this skill set without feeling like I'm going to get beaten up, I'm going to get hurt, so on and so forth. Teaching them how to fight is important, and also teaching them when to fight and what to fight for, right? So when to fight, I got to fight when I'm physically in danger, and what to fight for. I've got to fight to protect myself and also maybe protect my family and friends if need be. I know some people who are very tolerant of people intimidating them, but they won't tolerate it a second if you do it to their sibling or do it to their friend or someone that they love. They will absolutely go ham on them. So everyone has an emotional trigger, and everyone has, I think, things that we'll fight for. Also, how the kid is raised is very, very important. What messages are they receiving at home? Particularly for young ladies, I think it's so vitally important to train. Number one, it gives them a skill set that they can deal with if they need to. Two, all the sort of body issues that they have, the body compensation or issues that they have, their view of the world around them and the view of themselves will change. Their feelings of inadequacy. Young women are hit with this very early. Like it's stupid magazines at the store. If you don't have this purse, you're not cool. If you don't have this look, if you don't have these lips, if you don't have a bubble butt and all this other stuff, right? It's like, no, man, those are superficial things. And when you're training and becoming strong, you don't need those things anymore. You're totally okay with who you are. So I think it's important. I think self-defense and martial arts should be mandatory training from elementary school all the way through high school. I feel that strongly about it. I think schools would be less violent. I think attendance would skyrocket. I think respect would skyrocket. I think order would skyrocket. And you'd see people walking around with a healthy appreciation for each other. There's a weird thing that happens when kids start training with each other and adults too. There's this respect almost that happens because you respect, no matter what someone's ability is, you respect the fact that they're willing to come and compete. You respect the fact that they're willing to learn and train, and you were once there. So even if you're much better than they are, you weren't when you started. And so there's kind of like this cyclical respect continuum that happens amongst those who train. And so I think that's very, very important. So parents I don't want to make them do something. Introduce them to it. Parenting, you're going to make your kid do. You make your kid do stuff all the time they don't want to do. Make them take out the trash. You make them, hopefully if you're doing it right, you make them do chores. You make them show respect. You make sure that when they walk into a room that they go and speak to all the adults in the room and say hello to them and introduce themselves, right, with confidence. And people will say to me, well, why is that so important? If a kid is confident enough to walk up to the adults and introduce themselves and speak to them, any adult that had any nefarious intent towards a child, they're not going to pick that kid because that kid is too self-aware. That kid is projecting strength from jump. The kid who hides in the corner, who's timid or shy, I ban my parents of my program, kids of my program, parents of the kids of my program from ever using the word shy. Like, stop referring to your kid as shy. What you're referring to them as being timid. Timid is weakness. You're not a good person because you're timid. You're not a good person because you can't hurt a fly or you wouldn't hurt a fly. You're a good person because you could destroy things and you choose not to. And you know when to control it. That's what makes you good. If someone calls you timid, that's an insult. That's an insult. That means you're going to be timid in job interviews. You'll be timid at work. You'll be timid going after your dreams. You'll poke your dreams instead of penetrating your dreams. We want warriors. And in my kids program, I'm big on this. I tell all my students they have to bring me their report cards. I read their grades out in front of everyone. So whatever's on that report card, they earned it. So I had one parent say, well, little Johnny's going to be embarrassed when you read his grades. I'm like, little Johnny should have been doing his homework. You wouldn't have to worry about it. And that's the lesson. I've had kids who are F&D students in quarter one, quarter two, they're A and B. And for one reason only. They know when they bring me that report card, if I see some nonsense, there's going to be some problems and misunderstandings, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be some significant effort being put out to extinguish these things. And it's okay to hold kids accountable. It's okay to hold kids to a standard. It's okay to do those things. And a lot of parents have shied away from it because they're hearing all this nonsense about, oh, he's going to get PTSD because you told him no. No, you're a parent. Act like it, man. Come on.
Something else I wanted. When did you start studying martial arts, and how many styles have you studied?
Man, I've studied multiple styles. I started training when I was a kid. I started in boxing and wrestling. Boxing I liked from a fan standpoint. I didn't really like the boxing gym environment back in the 80s, and late 70s, early 80s. The early 80s, man, it was a little somewhat Neanderthal kind of nonsense going on in some of these boxing gyms. And honestly, boxing gyms, they weren't places for kids. They were places if you were a kid in a boxing gym hanging out, that's why a lot of the boxers, people would talk about how they don't have the highest level of education, because many of them drop out of school and they just focus on boxing. So I didn't really like the boxing environment. I loved the sport, and then I wrestled. I liked wrestling, and then I got into martial arts, karate, Kyokushin karate, and Filipino martial arts was a big influence, and some kung fu. And then when I got older as an adult, I focused on reality-based kind of Filipino systems and found Krav Maga later. And I kind of devoted myself to Krav Maga. I'm a 3rd-degree black belt in Krav Maga. I also train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And as a coach, I've been learning from some of the top fight coaches in the world, how to be a fight coach for my fight team, my MMA team. And I did that primarily because I had some students who wanted to fight, and I didn't really know enough about the fight game to trust other coaches. So I was like, I'm just going to have to teach myself and learn how to coach MMA and Muay Thai. And we've had a lot of success at the amateur level, and we're building some pros now that are doing quite well. I've cornered and won at Bellator as well. So it's gone well, man. So I consider myself truly a mixed martial artist because I've trained in multiple different things. But the martial art that I've made the most progress in, and I don't like to use the word expert, but I've got a certain level of expertise, is Krav Maga.
Okay, now let me ask you this. If one of your kids wanted to fight, would you be their corner man?
No.
Or could you not separate the...
I would help them prepare for their fight. I don't know that I would corner them, but Dewey Cooper would. So I would have Dewey do it because I trust Dewey, and he's a world champion, and I know my kids would be safe with him, and I also know they would be pushed to the appropriate level of mental conditioning, physical conditioning, and skill set that they need to be able to do it. Or Coach Kieran Fitzgibbons would do it. I would turn to one of my peers who I know could do it, so that way I can just be dad. Like I help like right now with my son and my daughter. My daughter, she's a competitive swimmer. She took second in state last year for swimming, and she swims for one of the more competitive swim clubs in the country at Sandpipers. And my son plays on the Nike circuit. Well, I help them with their individual skill set, but I don't coach my daughter in swimming. Um, I have coached my son in basketball when I've had to step in when a coach wasn't there, but generally I don't like to do it because I want to be a dad, and I don't want him to have to deal with me at home and on the bench, right? So, and I also want to spare him the inference that because dad's a coach, he's getting more or less opportunities. I don't want to deal with that stuff with the other parents, but I would definitely let them fight if they wanted to. Luckily, my kids both. My daughter, I think, wants to do jujitsu. She likes competing in jujitsu. My son can fight and will fight. He's very skilled, good athlete, but he just doesn't. He doesn't have a taste for blood, right? So like football, like he played football, flag football for a couple seasons, and he liked it. But he told me, he's like, I don't think I want to play tackle football, and that fits his personality. He just doesn't have a taste for blood like that. And I told him, I'm like, football's such a violent game. If you don't love it, if there's not a part of you that wants to run through another human being, don't play.
Well, like you said, he's more like his mom, that kind of, he's a very kind kid, wears his emotions on his sleeve. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah, my daughter's a savage though. My daughter, she's totally different. My daughter's like spitting image of me. She's a nice person, but she rattles at you. If you start messing with her, the rattle starts going. She's like, all right, like she'll have no problem. As she says, she's like, Dad, I have no problem giving people hands if they need it. And like, so she
and
will
that's
too.
good. That's what you want to hear from your kids, but I think especially from your daughter. Like she has it in her to defend herself, and like she says, give somebody the hands if necessary, because you don't want victims walking around here. You don't want the bag of groceries in your arm, looking at your cell phone, trying to balance stuff, looking like a victim walking through the parking lot. You want somebody with their head on a swivel who's looking around, not being paranoid, but being aware of their surroundings and looking behind them, checking their surroundings. That's very important.
She exhibited these cases very, very early when we were in San Francisco once, and we had gone within about a month. We had made 2 visits. And so when we go visit our family in San Francisco, we don't typically get a car because we know how to navigate on train. We're on a train, and the second visit that we went to, this guy was on the bus with us in the Muni, and he tried to rob this lady of her purse, and I stopped him and got the purse back. But my daughter recognized him from the first time that we were on the bus. She recognized him. And she said, Dad, I remember his dreads. She's like, I remember his face. He didn't look like a nice man. And so I was very proud of her because we saw him too. But you're right. For females especially, because they're being hunted. Like, let's be honest. Females in our society are being hunted. And we have to do a better job as men, number one, seeking these men out who do these things and holding them accountable. And then also preparing the women in our lives for what to do when we're not with them.
Yep. I started taking my family shooting because of that reason, and especially my wife. What if I'm not the threats? Like you said, if you're hunting something, you're not going to wait for it to be at its most prepared. You're not going to wait for it to be around its protectors. You're going to wait till it's alone. You're going to wait till you think it's at its weakest, its most vulnerable. So yeah, we may not be there. God help them if we are, but we may not be there. So we need to impart in them the skills to protect themselves if we're not there. So yeah, that's another part. Add that to the list of things that men and husbands and fathers are supposed to do.
Yeah, you listen. If you're a man and you're not doing those things, you're failing at part of your major primary function. Like, and I can't state this enough. There's a lot of videos with guys taking ice baths and posting quotes from Mencius or different
Nietzsche
inspirations.
Yeah,
Nietzsche or whatever, right? About being warriors. There's plenty of that. But a lot of those guys, they're phony. And what I mean by that, they just came to this understanding, right? So these guys are like in their late 40s now, and they just came to the understanding. And you see guys, whether it's jujitsu or whatever, they're all in, and but you're still failing in your regard if you're not teaching your children, and teaching the women in your family to be obviously be strong and not depend on external sources, but also your son learns how to be a man by watching you, right? Your son learns how to love by watching your interactions with other people in your family, whether it be the siblings or the spouse or what have you. And they also learn how to be a protector by watching you. So like, so in an age where masculinity is sometimes under attack, there's a fine line, and we have to find, I think, that reverence for masculinity, true masculinity, and strength, and then maintain our disdain for people who abuse that, right? Under the guise of it, because it's not the same thing. Excuse me. So as men, if we take our position and our purpose, and like you mentioned before, passion, I think, I do have a passion for it, but it's also a purpose, right? Are you walking in your purpose? Are you doing what you were sent here to do? And so many people get up every single day and get caught up in doing what they have to do. They're not doing what they should be doing or could be doing if they focused. And I think that's a big distinction.
Agreed. 100%, man. And Mitch, speaking of football,
yeah,
what year did you graduate college?
So I was out in 96.
Okay. So you come from, some might say, the old school football, smash mouth, what concussion protocol, So I remember seeing a guy, he was a running back for Oklahoma, and he got hit so hard he ran to the wrong sideline. I can't remember the guy's name.
Yeah.
Just brutal. So as someone who played football, I'm sure you're a fan of football. What do you think of the way football is now? And not only on a pro level, but, the CTE, and of course, with progress in time, you're going to change certain things because you have the knowledge. So things are going to get, I guess, safer. But do you think that's gone too far? Do you think there needs to be a certain level of brutality brought back to the sport of football?
Well, so football is a collision sport. Other sports are contact sports, right? So basketball is a contact sport. Football is a collision sport. And I don't think you can unfootball football. You can't take that part out of the game. However, I do think it's safer, like what we know now about concussions, or what they have admitted. I don't think there was any new information about concussions. I think they just openly admit it now. Before, they would avoid that conversation like the plague. You wouldn't even have a conversation with someone about a concussion. It was almost expected. So what do? You use science and technology to learn what's the safest way we can do this without damaging the product. The problem is it's subjective, right? So it's seemingly, what bothers me when I watch football now, I see kids hitting guys exactly the way they're taught to hit people, and they're still throwing penalties on these kids. And I'm like, well, what is a guy supposed to do? Am I supposed to let this defender run by me to go tackle my teammate when I could legally block him? And they see a guy get depleted, and they're throwing a flag because of the result of the violent collision versus the technique or the actual collision itself. Does it make sense? So it's like, like the perfect example of a call that should have never been made. It's this past weekend. I think it was the Chiefs and the Packers, and the quarterback's running down the sideline. He doesn't get out of bounds, and the defender comes and drills him.
Yeah.
Hits him with his shoulder, doesn't go head to head, hits him with his shoulder like you're taught to tackle, and they still call a penalty because it's so well he was defenseless. I'm like, no, he's a runner with the football at that point. At that point, it's on the offensive player to get down or get out of bounds. When you see a guy come running across the zone, a receiver come right across the zone, he doesn't sit down and make the catch, he keeps running. You're going to get drilled if you run across the zone. So there's got to be some leeway here, understanding. And by the way, every player that plays has accepted the risk that comes with it. In fact, they were drawn to the game because of that risk. That's why we're drawn to the game. So I think you can make the game safer. Like, it's never been okay to lead with your helmet. They used to call it spearing, right? I have a friend now who's paralyzed from the neck down because of football, and he's gone on to do great things for for legislation for paraplegics and quadriplegics, and he's walking in his passion now, if you will. But you know, he if you ask him if he had to do it all over again, would he still play? He's going to tell you yes, because he accepted the risk that comes with it. And so I think that's part of the allure to the game. So can you make it safer? Yes, but you have to also value the sanctity of the game. And if it's going to change the game, then I think you have to start to look at things. I don't think anybody would argue that, a ball goes sailing over a receiver's head that he can't catch. You can't have the defender come and put helmet underneath his chin strap. You know what I mean? And try and feel like you can't have that kind of stuff. That's unnecessary. I don't think anybody argues that. But I think during the course of the game, the flow of the game, you got to let these guys get after it. And I still think they're trying to find their way with that. I really don't think they have it down to a science.
I don't think they're even close. I think, whatever is best for the dollar signs is what they're going to do or what they're going to try to do.
Well, you understand, like, the NFL, the issue wasn't so people are like, well, these players knew they would get concussions. Yeah, but their doctors in the NFL, by proxy, were lying to the players about the long-term effects of the concussion. Mm-hmm. So now, of course, you go, they get in a room with attorneys, they get in a room with doctors, and they say, okay, what's the best way that we can maintain this product without doing it? They have to make every effort to make it appear like they're not negligent in their response to what has been publicly acknowledged as far as CTE goes. So, but you know what's hilarious to me? We hear about the CTE stuff all the time, and now there's a slap league where guys have to take a shot in the face of full speed slap open, and no one's talking about, dudes are getting their lights turned out, and no one's talking about CTE. Oh, and yeah. I'm like, so I'm like, well, how in the hell is that okay? But I can't tackle a guy and I feel like this. It doesn't make sense to me. It's so either it is a thing or it's not a thing. And people are like, well, don't worry. It's, they're only getting slapped maybe once and they go unconscious. I'm like, yeah, their brain's still getting shut down though.
Yeah.
So how is that even allowed? But football somehow is too dangerous. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah. Not to mention in football, you're geared up, helmet, pads everywhere.
That part.
And I think if you take somebody who's in that slap fight, whatever, if they do that for a year, how many times do they get knocked out? Versus,
my God,
if you're a player, it's rare that you get knocked out. But it seems to me, watching those videos, these people are going to take a handful of knockouts every year. Well,
listen, man, you let somebody tee off and get a free shot at you, that bill's going to come due quick, right? So it's look, there's a science behind it, right? So the concussion happens when the brain bounces off the inside of the skull, right? So any jarring hit from outside that forces that action you're going to get a concussion, whether you go unconscious or not. Look, my son was dealing with it. He took a hard screen the other day, and the game got lit up. Not dirty, not malicious, part of the game. It just is what it is. And I was angry not because he got hit, but because his teammate didn't call out the screen. You're not looking up for it. And there's like a selfishness there, right? Like, it's almost, again, learning from the Army. I can accept things that happen to me, but what I can't accept is my failure costing my teammate to get injured or possibly killed. Right. Mm-hmm. So like you alluded to earlier, people are on watch while you're sleeping. It's like, if you ever had a man put his life in your hands or you put your life in that man's hands, then you understand real. Something to get out here. Got a notification my phone's getting on. All right. So get a real understanding of where you fall in the line. All right. And what your responsibility as a teammate is. Make sure my guy doesn't get hurt. So that's what made me mad, but not the collision, not the contact that happened. It's part of the game. And so if you're contact adverse, go find something else to play. I don't know what to tell you. This isn't for everybody. I'm not a big believer in this nonsense that everybody gets a chance. And look, when they're younger kids, 6, 7, 8 years old, that's totally okay, because they're learning how to play at that point. But when we get older, as you start getting older and they start getting, to understand wins and losses, right? And now they're in high school. You can't. This is about putting the
I don't think I lost you there, Donovan. Uh-oh. Let's see. Well, hopefully we can get him back because I had a few more questions for him. This really sucks. All right, guys, let me see if he's gonna come out, disconnect, try to reconnect, see if that helps. But you know, this is how it is when you do it live. We'll do it live. this is how it goes. Will I edit this out? I don't know. To be honest, I don't even know if I know how. I might leave it in there. It adds to the character of the interview. But he did disconnect, so I think he's going to try to reconnect and come back in, which would be cool because we were having a great conversation, and I had a few more questions for him. That. Okay. Almost done, people. See if he's going to come back in. Hopefully he does, so we can finish up. Because I got some good ass questions. See if I can contact him on the gram. Are you on the gram? Should totally be on the gram. So hopefully he's going to come back. But what a great conversation so far. And it's good to have people in the world who still have those values. You know, family is important, leadership is important, being confident, defending yourself, defending others if necessary. I don't know if I want to ask him which football team he's a fan of, because that might start an argument. You know, he's from the Bay Area, so there's a good chance it's the Raiders. And if you've been following me for any length of time, you know how I feel about them. So let me see if I can get in touch with them on here. It says my phone overheated. The app crashed. Son of a bitch. So he's logging back in, people. He's coming back in. All right. Send him the thumbs up emoji. Man, these damn phones. He's in Vegas. Obviously, he's the owner and proprietor of Las Vegas Combat Academy. But it's not summertime, so I can understand it overheating in the summertime because Las Vegas is like 7 feet from the sun. But it's wintertime, people. Come on. All right, we got him back. Let's see if we can get that good connection going. Donovan.
What's up, man? Sorry. I don't know what the hell's happening. I got this notification like your phone's overheating. I'm like, what? And then it just died. So I don't know, man. Technology is great when it works.
Right? But
pisses me off. You got a $2,000 cell phone and then, unbelievable.
Yeah, I was just saying, I know you're in Vegas, and if it was summertime, that would make more sense. But it's wintertime, man. So.
Yeah, it's only 70. It's like 75 right now. It's nice, but I don't know. I have no idea.
Damn it. Well, that's water under the bridge, thankfully.
Yep.
So something I wanted to ask you. In your reels and stuff that I follow and everything and the feeds that come on the page, you always have music in the background. Usually, I shouldn't say always. Nothing's always, but you usually have music in the background. So how important is music when you're training, and what kind of music do you like to listen to when you're training? Is there a genre that gets you pumped?
You know what, man? Music is very important. It sets a tone. It does set a tone. I have a very eclectic sort of group of guys and ladies that train with me. Like this morning, I had one of the guys, he loves 80s rock, so we were listening to AC/DC and some Ozzy this morning while we were training. Eminem. But lately, I'm a big hip hop head, right? So I love the old school, but I like the new stuff too. I'm not one of these old dudes that like, oh, these guys mumble too much. Although they do mumble too much. But it's the kids, man. It's their time. Let them shine. If you like the old shit, listen to the old shit. You know what I mean? So, but the stuff that I'm into now, I'm a big Benny the Butcher fan, man. Griselda music.
Buffalo,
the guys out of
Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, man. I'm a big fan of those guys. And then of course I listen to all the classics. Huge Jay-Z fan. Rakim is like my favorite of all time. Public Enemy. So yeah, so those things you change. But listen, growing up in the Bay Area, shout out to Metallica, great heavy metal band, one of the greatest of all time in my opinion as far as heavy metal goes. Lenny Kravitz, love Lenny. So it depending on what day and what we're doing, bump the tunes and we get after it.
Okay, so what drew you to Krav Maga? You obviously had access to all these different styles. What made you gravitate and kind of focus on that?
The simplicity, the purpose, and the violence of it. I think for Krav Maga, for me, anything that comes from real combat, you can trust it. And so Krav Maga's purpose is to keep the people safe, and it gets you from 0 to 60 pretty quick. So from a self-defense standpoint, it's great. There's a lot of people that hate on it because, quite frankly, there's a lot of bad Krav Maga that's being shown out there on the internet. And then also, too, I think the proliferation of MMA being everywhere and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu being everywhere, human beings always want to look at something and go, well, this style versus that style. And it's like the most boring conversation ever, right? So what I tell people is that you want something that's fast, effective, and proven to work. And Krav Maga fits that bill. Now, that doesn't mean other systems don't. All martial arts are good for what they were created for. As long as you know how to apply it in a situation that you're there, you're going to be fine. But if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So it's important to exercise that mentality versus loyalty to any given style.
All right. And I wanted to play that reel. This is the reel that I saw, and I said, I got to reach out to this dude. I got to get him on here. All right. So I'm going to play that reel. I'm going to play it real quick, and then I'm going to read a quote from you. So let's get into this here.
The true portion of the defense is I have to defend and counter. First comes the second is to find me. Now, you see? Trying to take his head off. That's how you stop an attacker. Separate them from consciousness.
Come on, man. That's right out of a movie right there. Hold on. Let me read the quote. Okay. Let me read the quote from you real quick. It says, when the man attacks us, he has no idea what we have been preparing for him, and he is in the worst day of his life, end quote. Now, that clip right there, that reel, when you're looking at your fist and you're talking through your teeth, you know what I'm saying? That's how you talk to your kids in public when they're doing something wrong and you don't want to yell like that. It's hard to explain, but that passion and the savagery of the moment is what made me reach out, man. And I just love that. I love that about your content. I love that about the school that you run, Las Vegas Combat Academy. But would I be off base in labeling you with that word, passion?
No, I think if you're going to do anything, whether it's cooking, whether it's fighting, whether it's design of architect, whatever, you have to have a passion for what you do. You also have to have an understanding and a commitment to the process that it takes to become the best at what you do. But when I use certain words or certain phrases, I don't really give them any thought before. It's not like I, script it, but I want to try and convey the emotional content to the students in the best way possible. Look, if I'm going to put my hands on another human being, it's for one purpose and one purpose only. It's to knock that man unconscious. I will not get engaged in any physical altercation with another human that doesn't end that way. what it does, it keeps me in check, because now I ask the question: has this person done enough to warrant being put down and knocked out? Most of the time, the answer is no. Right? So then it keeps me in check. So it's like I'm not going to get upset or not even upset, but like deal with them directly. But if they have, then they're going to get full dose. There's no question about it. When someone attacks you in the street, man, you got to remember something. They believe they're going to be 100% successful, right? So you only have a few seconds to kind of change that paradigm. And there's not going to be a second, third, and fourth round. It's not going to be that. If it resorts to that, then you failed. So you don't want I don't want a fair fight. I want every advantage I could possibly get. I want to be as violent as I need to be and as fast and explosive as I need to be to stop the threat so I can go home to my family.
Bottom line. Okay, well, I think this is a perfect time for some rapid fire questions. Now I'm gonna hit you with some, and then you give me the first thing that comes to mind. So of course, the classic Ali or Tyson?
Ali.
Who would you rather be trained by, Bruce Lee or Ron Van Cleef?
Bruce.
Too Short or E40?
Oh, man, come on, man. Oh.
Come on. The Bay is watching.
40.
Okay, so yeah, same here. I would take 42. A little biased because I met him a couple times, but yeah, E40.
Hey man, that dude right there will never get the roses that he needs. Yeah. That dude right there has been spitting game and run like from an independent standpoint. And shout out to Short too, right? Because like when I was a kid, Too Short used to walk up and down Bancroft selling his tapes out of a bag.
Yep.
Like this is before record deals and all that. So, but this I don't think there's anything more Bay Area than E40.
Yeah, and
E40 is the best.
Yeah, I think in a word, he's influential. There's so many other rappers that have been his words, his phrases, his style. I mean,
that dude is. So shout out to 40. So if 40's watching this, got nothing but love for Earl. Nothing but love for
him. Vallejo, just like you, the Valley Joe.
All day, the V. Yep.
So, and you spent some time in East Oakland. So let me ask you this: quick ways or quarter pounders?
Quarter pounder.
And there's a dude in are you familiar with a guy named Sifu in East Oakland?
Sifu?
Yeah, he was a martial arts teacher. He's been there for decades.
The only guy I'm thinking of is the guy that was at Secrecy's in North Oakland or Berkeley, but I'm not sure if we're talking about the same guy.
Yeah, I read an article where he's like his lease is up and the city's giving him the boot, but he's been there for decades, teaching martial arts. I
hate hearing that kind of stuff because that's what's ripping Oakland apart. This is part of gentrification and part of this whole, what happens? They start changing the names of the streets in the neighborhood. It doesn't look the same. Like, there's a certain grittiness and a certain, feel that Oakland has for the people and for the culture. And if you get rid of the people, you lose the culture, man. And I'm not talking about the poverty and the crime and all that stuff. Is one thing I tell, especially I tell black folks all the time. You can love your neighborhood without loving poverty and crime. We can love the people. We can love the culture. We can love the restaurants that we like to go to, and the same face. Like when I go home to the Dro, there's a place everybody in Oakland knows this place too. It's called the Fifth Wheel. The Fifth Wheel in Oakland. It's a little diner. It's got about maybe 6 to 8 tables in there, and a bar top. And the same Korean families owned it forever, and we all go there to eat. And the food's good, but it's more nostalgia than anything. You know what I mean? It's like going home. And if that place wasn't there, and they wanted to the landlord wanted to kick them out, I mean, it'd just be terrible for the city. It's a whole vibe, man. So I hate hearing that. I realize that things do have to change, so we have to be cognizant of that. But for our folks, for black people, I tell us all the time: if we want to stop this from happening, then we need to stop renting our lives and start owning our lives. Okay? Much like many of the immigrant population have come here, they control their neighborhoods. Like right now, you or I are not going to any Chinatown in this country and starting a business and opening a store without someone from the community signing off on us being there.
True.
In black communities all over the country, people from outside can come in and start business. And I'm not knocking them because it's an opportunity. They should. But we have to do more than consume. right? We consume. We have to control and create and own, and these things will stop happening to us.
Yeah, see, this is something we can get into in round 2. Hopefully, you'll come back and sit down with me again.
If you ask me, I will come back, brother, for sure.
But yeah, they ran the A's out of there. The Raiders are out of there.
Yeah, we know. We got them. They're in Vegas. We got them. The A's are coming. But that's part of also too, like, bad leadership in Oakland, right? Like, you can't. You have to value your franchises when you have them. You can't try and nickel and dime them and the whole bit. And then also too, the ownership group of the A's, for instance, they're not from Oakland, so they don't have that connection to the city. And I think that's a huge problem. Even when the Warriors left Oakland and went to San Francisco, they still tried as much as they could to tie that crowd, even though the crowds look completely different now. But when I was a kid growing up in Oakland, you could go to the A's game for $5 and sit in the bleachers, take $10 with you and have a good time. You get a colossal dog from the Coliseum and a Coke and sit there and watch the game. And now it's so expensive that limits the ability for a lot of families to go enjoy a game. Could you imagine what it's like to take a family of 4 to the Warriors game now?
Right, that's a vacation. No bullshit.
Yeah,
that's a small vacation.
Yeah, I could take my family to Hawaii. That's enough to cover flights to Hawaii.
Yeah,
it's tough, man.
All right. So last question. I'm gonna get you out of here. I know you're a busy man. So 2008, the economy is doing what it does. Your wife is carrying twins. And the Donavin Britt from today has 30 seconds to tell that Donavin Britt something on the day that everything crashes. Like you said, the loans that you were given, everything's crumbling around you. You were both in real estate. 2008 was terrible for real estate. What do you tell that 2008 Donavin Britt?
Stay the course. You have a plan, execute it. That simple. Life's tough, but you're not being shot at right now. And you will win. It's just going to be a matter of time before it turns. So learn, invest in your education, and see what people have done in the past when times have been hard, and apply those same lessons.
Excellent. And not only could you say that to yourself in 2008, but anybody seeing this can take that lesson in their life. Stay the course, stick with it. Pressure makes diamonds. And I thank you, Donavin, for carving out some time for me, man. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I hope we can do this again. And I hope you take this as the compliment that it's meant as. But if I lived in Vegas, I'm out here in California, but if I lived in Vegas, I would gladly take my kids to the Las Vegas Combat Academy to be under your tutelage.
Man, I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for reaching out. And anytime I can be of assistance, all you got to do is reach out, be there. Thank you for living with my technical difficulties today too. But it's an honor to talk to you and meet you. And if anybody's looking for training, Las Vegas Combat Academy or LasVegasCravMaga.com. And if you reach out, I respond to most of the messages personally. There's hundreds of thousands of them. We go through them. Okay. So just give me a few days and I'll get back to you. But thanks, brother. I appreciate it so much. It's nice meeting you. And I look forward to doing this again.
Same to you, man. You take care. Peace.
All right, brother.
All right, people. Despite those technical difficulties, I think that was a success. Shout out to Donavin Britt at Las Vegas Combat Academy. All of his information, the links and everything will be in the description box. So if you're in the area, or you might be in the area, make sure you check him out. Follow him on Instagram at Las Vegas. Let me get, because there's some, there we go. Las_Vegas_Combat Academy. Make sure you check him out. Thank you again very much, Donavin, for being here. Shout out to you and your family. And you guys know how we do it here. All right. We sit down with interesting people with amazing stories to tell. Who will it be next week? Well, you're just going to have to tune in and find out. But until then, peace.